And the future, I suppose, of a peaceful world. My guest, Dr. Tawfiq Hamid, who, let's promote his book once more if we may, The Roots of Jihad, which is readily available on his website, rootsofjihad.com. Speaking of jihad, and you mentioned this before the commercial break, I know Muslims who will say, yes, there is a concept of war, of military struggle, but also internal jihad, struggling against demons, against temptation, against the tendency to sin, so purification of the self, completely peaceful, as a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu would, the idea of purifying the inner person. Can jihad not mean that?
Look, jihad has two meanings, the word jihad. In pure Arabic language literature, it is a defensive term. Basically, the word is derived from the verb jahada or yujahad, which means to resist something. But if you start attacking others, it's called udwan, not jihad. You attack others. This is prevented in the Quran. But the practical application throughout history and the religious understanding of jihad is to convey, is to a great extent convey war on others, especially in Salafi teaching, to force them on Islam or pay you jizya or to kill them. So both are true. In Arabic language it is a defensive term, but in the religious application throughout history the application was very offensive. Through this application of jihad, the early Arabs invaded Europe, invaded north of Africa, invaded Palestine and parts of Asia. So there are two meanings of jihad. Sufi people understand jihad as internal conflict. And this could be okay, but the dominant one of the Salafi teaching is really violent one. So we are talking about the reality now, not the theory. It's like the word gay in English means happy, but the practical application now means something else. So it's exactly like this. The original word jihad is defensive, but the practical application, they took this and attacked others in history. So it has two meanings.
There are those who would argue that a region is exploited by superpowers. Soviets play games, Americans play games, France, Germany, Britain, are people who are often ruled by dictators, sometimes propped up by the West. Various conflicts, some people with incredible wealth, others living in poverty. So that there are groups of individuals who are looking for some sort of unifying, liberating ideology. It hasn't been communism, obviously. It's not capitalism. They see it in Islam. So, okay, maybe they are being told things that aren't completely true, or they've been given a very violent interpretation of the Quran, but it's a liberating force. You can understand why people are embracing jihadism.
I'm sorry, can you just summarize the question?
Well, that people can understand, that we should understand why some people in the Middle East in particular, and elsewhere in the Muslim world, are becoming radical Muslims. Because for them it's a way of liberation.
No. Based on my personal experience and the people around me, I don't believe this is true at all. And you can just have a look on a 7/7 attack in London. The homegrown terrorism happened in a very democratic society. The people were well educated. They don't need liberty. So its lack of democracy was not a cause, okay? And it actually, they generate a sort of they make you feel not interested in the earthly living at all, and they make you live in your nirvana, in the paradise and their fleshly enjoyments there. And in fact, one of the contributing factors to this phenomena is what I call sexual deprivation syndrome, which is simply as that in the Middle East, in the 70s until now, it was become very difficult to marry because of the costs. For marriage was very high. It's costly to marry in this part of the world because the man has to pay a lot of money to marry, and also extra
the cost of the wedding, the ceremony.
And the whole cost to start a new life as marriage is very costly in the Middle East, and extramarital relations are prohibited in Islam.
Which is a good thing.
Of course, certainly it's a good thing, but I'm explaining, I'm trying just to analyze what happened. Many scholars also prevent Muslims, our young Muslims, they told them masturbation is even not allowed. Okay,
this is Christian teaching too.
No, this is at one side, but you don't probably teach the other part. The other part is this is at one hand. On the other hand, They are telling you the women are waiting for you in the tents up there in the paradise, describing them to you in a very sexual manner. When you read the current traditional Islamic books, you will see this clearly. So at one hand, you have this suppression, which is okay by itself. It's not a problem. People can tolerate this. But on the other hand, the more religious you become, the more you dream about these things. And it becomes like a sort of extraordinary power that directs many young Muslims to dream about going to paradise just to make sex. And I will give you a concrete example about this. Do you know Shia Muslims? Mm-hmm. There are Shia and Sunni. Shia Muslims, Shia allows something called mut'a marriage, which is a temporary marriage for enjoyment. That's the meaning of mut'a marriage. It can last from 1 hour to 99 years. So people can just marry for 1 hour and that's it. So they have some element of sexual release. You might have noticed that the percentage of suicide bombers are basically from Sunni, who have extreme sexual suppression. But Shia Muslims do not do much suicide bombings, partially because, not only, but partially because they are able to release their sexual desires on earth without going to paradise to enjoy this. This was a contributing factor. And also poverty. Some people can say poverty is a contributing factor. There is a relationship between terrorism and poverty, but it's not as many people imagine. When terrorism happened in Egypt, because of the proliferation of Islamism phenomena, terrorism started to happen. We killed tourists in Egypt. Tourism went down. The economy went down. Poverty increased. When poverty increased, it became easier for terrorist organizations to recruit new members. So, and when they recruit new members, they do more terrorism, so more poverty, and it goes like a vicious cycle of positive feedback mechanism. But the primary factor in this cycle is not poverty. It is Islamism and terrorism itself. Because if it was poverty, why then most of the hijackers of September 11th were from the richest Islamic country? And majority of terrorists and suicide bombers till now are not from poor families. So they weren't poor, they weren't of low education. So statistically speaking, it's clear that majority of terrorists were not poor and were not poorly educated. So if someone wants to assume something else, this is just imaginary assumption, not based on facts.
I want to question you on a couple of things you said. When we come back,